Am I either sitting a little? Am I sitting a little closer? Is this camera a little? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not leaning down so much. Whatever. Eh. Okay. Anyway. Hello. Hello, it's me, Sean, librarian, writer, geek, back again. Doing another, look at another tabletop game that I enjoy, have read, or whatever, that I have at least looked at. Actually, this is another one that I've actually read, or run rather. So I feel like, or at least I've run like the quick start. So whatever, I have a basic grasp of what the rules are. I also have a new chat overlay display thing. So hopefully, whenever I whenever I finish with Dragon Age and move on to the next one, I don't know, whenever I start playing stuff that's where playing it in windowed mode is either difficult or at the very least potentially awkward, I can still read the chat and whatnot, because for some reason, I don't know, I think Dragon Age is just like, it's just old enough to where OBS or other, things, that other programs that connect to like Twitch chats and whatnot, look at, like, it doesn't work. It won't display it on top of whatever it is. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure why or what's going on there, but it is what it is. Anyway, yeah. So this week's been going all right. I guess Monday was for me was like it after work was just terrible because traffic driving home was just absolutely horrendous for a while, and but since then it's kind of everything's kind of picked up and I'm doing better. I guess I don't know. Mm. Anyway, wait. I am thinking about. I'm definitely considering doing more video game streaming on Thursdays as well. Because as much as I enjoy doing this and looking at these games and just sharing my love of, because I have so many of these games and I enjoy sharing them and talking about them, uh, I do kind of want to switch to just playing games as well, because it's just something I can also do that doesn't maybe it would be, I don't know, be a little more less active on my part. I don't know. I could schedule it out a little better. It would not take me. I, don't know, I wouldn't feel less scrambling to do stuff. I don't know. Anyway, anyway, but I'm definitely gonna. I think I'm gonna be do. I'm gonna try and do that at least. Gonna try and keep doing this for another 2 or 3 week, like 3 more weeks maybe, because there's a game that I should be getting sometime first week of July, maybe, hopefully. And yeah, I'll be getting it a physical edition, which would be, so it's like, ooh, I can really show off stuff, and that'd be really cool. And I really want to do that, and I don't want to like take a week, do something weird for a week, and then jump back to this. I don't, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm gonna definitely look through my stuff and try and figure something out. Anyway, on to what we're actually here. What I'm here to actually talk about. I'm gonna regret looking at my stats real quick because, of course, I am. Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. Okay. Anyway, so today I'm going to be looking at this game, this lovely game over here, Fabula Ultima, which I picked up the quick start, I think 2021, 2022, I don't know. It was a while, like sometime last year, and I think shortly after they released the actual full rules, I think, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, as you can, but and we'll be. I mean, just even just looking at the cover art, it's like if you look at that and you go, oh, okay, even that should give you an idea of like, oh, that's what this is. Okay, sure. But, just in case, we're going to dig a little closer into it. All right, hold on. Whoop. Okay. And again, so, all right. So, yes, as you can tell, yeah, it tells you right up front, yeah, a tabletop JRPG, which is like, okay, cool. And again, I don't know, I'll admit I don't play a lot of JRPGs. I haven't played a lot of that stuff, but I do love the art. And I do love the art style, especially because the company that published this, and I love how just they really, really lean in to the console JRPG style aesthetics and whatnot. Like, because just this little like the little quill thing in different spots and like just other stuff. But and obviously the name. There's a lot of stuff. I know for like they called the they called their they called the quick start. They called it press start. Okay, that's what they called. They didn't call it a quick start. They call it press start. And like the okay, if you want to continue playing is with these characters, okay, here's how and here's some stuff, and they called that load game. So it's they these folks, they lean very heavily into that, and I love it. I really do, and I'm actually going to come out and say this. I think this game actually does something. It does what I feel games like Pathfinder kind of try to do with like the sheer number of feats and whatnot that are in Pathfinder, and the you can like I feel like when it comes to Pathfinder here, especially 2e Pathfinder, it's like, oh, you you can do what you can make any character you want. You can do whatever you want. Da 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 da. And it's like, okay, but it's a mess to do so. But anyway, scrolling past the lovely credits, there's a lovely forward here. Yeah, okay, and yeah, this is yeah, just lovely introduction stuff. A lot of these, the company that makes this is in Italy, so that's, I don't know, it definitely is interesting. And we're not obviously not going to go through the whole thing, but okay, hey, generally going to try and skip to the rule game, probably skip to the game rules section, but yeah, there's obviously you can see much stuff here, and honestly, it doesn't even get into character creation until like until chapter 3, which is 140 pages in, which is like almost halfway through the book, because they take this big, they take over like a third of the book to kind of go into a lot of the rules and a lot explaining all the stuff and how it all works. I'm not going to even try to get into the GM stuff. I'm hoping we can get into at least some of the character creation stuff, because that's where it gets really fun and interesting. Anyway, again, more of this wonderful, amazing JRPG, Final Fantasy. I don't know who does the just amazing art that I absolutely love and very evocative. And I know for a fact that they have an actual official soundtrack, and it's on YouTube. So if you look it up, it's there. Anyway, yada yada yada. Basically, yeah, here's what basic idea is. Okay, hey, What's a role playing game? You know what a role playing game is. If you, why are you here? Here's an example of stuff in action. Here's the da 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 da. Okay, what's this about? I'm pretty sure that's a mistake there. Whatever. Anyway, but like yeah, these couple basic ideas real quick. Like okay, yeah, okay, we're yeah, heroic, fantastic action. Yeah, we're not trying to be realistic. We're not trying to make this feel like an emulate. This is not attempting to be realistic. We're trying to go for a very video gamey feel. That's what we're doing. That's important. Uh, hopefully the game should be driven mostly by like the heroes and what they're doing, and the GM just acts and is responding to the heroes and what they want to do and their motivations and objectives. The heroes are special and intended to do big important stuff. You don't just player characters don't just die when they hit a certain point. They die when they will die when the player feels like, okay, yeah, this is a good appropriate. It would be appropriate for my character to die in this particular setup situation, and it would be dramatically appropriate. Ostensibly, we want the fights to be a little be kind of challenging. The players have to actually think a bit. And here's another really cool thing: that there's no set world. That's what building the world is kind of one of those things that you do as a group before the game, before you really start the game officially. You build the world. The players get to have their input on this stuff and what the world is going to be like. So, and that's kind of cool. They do have these 8 pillars, which are sort of like 8 things that are, what is it? Da, 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 da. Okay, yeah. 8 ideas they really kind of want to lean. 8 things they kind of want to keep up. Like, okay, yeah, there's world is ancient and dangerous. There's if you leave the city, there's ancient civilizations and whatnot. Not so you go digging around and find all these magic, powerful artifacts and whatnot. Most of the world is if you go around if you leave the cities and villages and whatnot, you're probably going to be in danger. um, People in different communities might not don't get along, so it's potentially the job of the heroes to get them to see beyond themselves and unite for the greater good and whatnot. uh, this is probably the most set thing. Like, okay, what there's some kind of energy, power, soul, spirit energy in all things, and if you can manipulate that, it makes you powerful, particularly powerful. And the 2 ways you can manipulate that energy are obviously magic and technology, and of course you can put the two together, so for extra fun. Uh, the heroes are kind of good. Yeah, it's uh, uh, yeah, you don't have to be. Heroes can be of different, all kinds of different, comes in all kinds of varieties, whatnot. And again, it really is kind of all about the heroes. Stuff may or may not happen the really important stuff happens when they're present, not while they're off doing other stuff. And hey, yeah, wandering around finding stuff is also part of the game. They give three basic general ideas of like, okay, here's settings you might want to go with. We have the high fantasy sort, your typical medieval, quasi medieval kingdom sort of thing. Got here's some general types of characters you might play in a high fantasy setting for this game. Here's a couple of interesting locations you might use. What is magic in this setting? What kind of enemies are you going to be fighting again? Yeah, it's fun. You have what they call the natural fantasy, which is kind of more Studio Ghibli style fantasy, where it's like, okay, maybe things aren't so big and flashy, but things aren't so big and flashy. It's maybe a little more about, people learning and finding ways to live in harmony with nature and that kind of stuff. Your characters maybe are a little less, maybe not so much larger than life heroes. You're more the local type stuff, smaller scale stuff. Yeah, magic is a lot less formal. It's a lot more it's a lot less flashy, that kind of thing. And finally, of course, we have the techno fantasy, which is basically more or less every single. This is your major Final Fantasy type setting, especially from like, I think 7 on, pretty much, where it's like, it's potentially this weird kind of quasi dystopian setting, but there's also magic. Magic may or may not be. Magic kind of is around, but it's a lot more harnessed and controlled, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, magic claimed by technology and turned into another source of power. So that's, yeah, the idea. Stuff you need. Okay, yeah, character sheets. There's a special group sheet you're gonna need, world sheet, and a map sheet. All of that stuff can actually be found at the website. So hey, check that. Go there if you really want to download that stuff. Yada 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 yada. Yeah. Special little counter token things. Those are gonna be important. And yeah, dice, derp. Here's what players need to do. What players need to do. What the GM needs to do. Art. Love this art. Love more art. Always more art. I really want to know if each of these characters was given a name by the designers, because they show up again further on in the book. I think they show up throughout this book, I believe. All right. Yada yada yada. Rules are scenes. Scene art. A scene is what's a scene? Scene is arrive at place, do stuff. Scene ends when we leave. There's a couple different types. Conflicts are fights. Interludes are more character. Well, conflict is fights or basically. Interludes are maybe more let's have the players interact with each other, and also there's game master scenes, which are basically cut scenes that the player characters might not be there, but the players will see it and hear it, and it's great. It's fun. Obviously, hey, what's a session? What's a campaign? Yada yada yada. A couple quick basic rules. Hey, what ally is anyone? What's an ally? Oh, ally, when it says to when you're dividing in half, you always roll round down. Here's the when you have different modifiers and whatnot, here's the order you need to do it in, which is sort of a reverse of standard order of operations. If there's a specific rule, the specific rule trumps the general rule. Okay. Timing. Timing of whether when stuff kicks in. Yada yada yada. Okay. Building a quick layout of how you do what a character is. You got we have traits, which basically boil down to your identity, which is like, yeah, it's your character concept in essence. Give me like a quick, in one sentence or less, explain what your character is. Theme is basically, what's your motivation, and origin is like, where are you from? And this is important because you can do stuff with that. You can actually do stuff in game with that. Hold on. Sorry, phone decided to go off. I don't know why people in strange places keep trying to call me, but they do, and I never want to talk to them. Anyway, other thing. Okay, bonds. Characters can actually have bonds between other members of the group. It's another little fun thing, and it's like they can only have a bond of 3, and it's either comes in these 3 pairs: admiration, inferiority, loyalty, mistrust, and affection, hatred. So it's like, okay. And Fabula points. These are sort of what make player characters special, and you use those to do a lot of different things. You can earn them in a number of different ways. Obviously, character level, that's pretty straightforward. You do generally, as written, they generally kind of want you to actually start at level 5, which seems high, but will actually make sense. And, they kind of cap it at like 50 potentially. But, again, when you understand how the classes and level stuff work, it will actually make it's a lot less. It'll make the numbers will make sense. They might seem kind of big, but they will. It's not crazy. I don't need to. Okay, okay. Anyway, all right. Hey. Oh, hey, that's fine, Mur. Thank you for showing up. Yay, happy. Yeah. I don't know how into JRPGs you are, but hey, this game might actually be something fun. I don't know about, but hey, something to check out. Basic quick look at okay, classes, attributes. Okay, so this game you only have 4 attributes, and they're very straightforward. It's like, okay, you got dex, you got insight, you got might, you got willpower. It's and hey, my new overlay thing works wonderfully, so that's fun. Hit points. You know what hit points are. That's how much damage your character can take before being knocked out of the fight. Mind points. Again, because it's the JRPG, you kind of have a mana bar, and that's what MP is. And inventory points. This is something I really like, because it's completely changed. They do inventory in an interesting way. So instead of like having to buy up like potions and stuff, you instead you buy inventory points, and you basically, until you pull stuff out and use it, it's kind of an abstracted thing. Like, I think it's like, okay, like a healing potion costs 3 inventory points. Okay, so you don't buy healing potions, you buy inventory points, and the inventory points are basically whatever exists in your inventory is kind of in a weird it will be determined when you spend the points to pull stuff out. Basically, I got two types of defense. You got your regular avoid being hit, physical defense, and you got your avoid spells, magic defense, initiative modifier, equipment, and yada yada yada. Of course, they have their own special currency, and they call it a zenit. I don't know. Yeah, you get the idea. Checks. All right. I think I'm given to understand this is kind of like it. This game borrows a lot from Ryutama, which is another kind of Japanese style thing that I think focuses a little less on combat and more like just traveling around. But basically, whenever you actually need to roll to decide to figure something out. Okay, well, I need to go back a little. Okay, so you got your attributes, and each attribute, when you create a character, you assign a different die to that attribute. It goes from a D6, D6, D8, D10, D12. I think they generally kind of cap you at a D10 initially, but you can bump an attribute up to a D12 through play. And whenever you need to make a roll to do something, you pick any two of your four attributes, and you can pick the same attribute twice. But you pick two of those, you roll the corresponding dice, and you try to beat whatever the target number is. So, like in this example, it's like, okay, insight plus willpower. Okay, well, you have a D6 for insight and a D10 for willpower. So you roll a D6 and a D10, and poof, you get the result. And again, you can double up. Like sometimes you might, hey, you need might plus might. Okay, and if you have modifiers to that, you add a modifier to that. Easy. Yada yada yada. Check terminology. Yada yada yada. Critical success is when you roll doubles and it's at least a 6 or higher. So like double six, you're always rolling 2 dice. So double 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or up to 12. That's a critical success and does nice things for you. But if you roll double ones, that's a fumble. So you obviously fail. The opponent, whatever they may be, your opponent gets to maybe potentially do something, but you do get a nice Fabula point, which again you can use to do stuff. So fumbles aren't all bad. If you roll a crit, you can basically you get to set up an opportunity, which is any number of these things. Some of them useful, some of them useful in combat, some of them useful in more social. Not so much physical combat, but maybe social stuff. Interacting with the scene and whatnot. All right. Difficulty level. That's the number you need to roll to beat it. Quick idea. Okay, what's a basic difficulty levels? Yeah, okay. 7 is really easy. 10's average. 13 is kind of hard. 16 is, that's pretty hard. So and general advice: if you don't know what to do, go with 10. Success and failure. Yada yada yada. There's a lot of stuff. I feel like a lot of this is maybe more for the GM, but yeah. Okay. So, right. So Fabula points. We've mentioned those a couple of times. You use those, And this is where you use Fabula points to invoke traits, and basically get a reroll. So you roll a skill check, and you roll a skill check and you fail. You can spend a Fabula point to somehow you can spend a Fabula point to invoke one of your traits, your identity, origin, or theme, and explain in the fiction how that works, and you can re-roll one or both dice that you just rolled. You can also, if that's, let's see, if that doesn't quite work, you can instead spend a Fabula point to invoke a bond a bond with another character, and that will, let's see, what is that? Okay, and then you can add the strength of the bond. So if you have, if you have two emotional bonds between these two characters, and you invoke that bond, you can add like a 2 to the results. Yeah. Accuracy check. That's combat. You want to roll higher than your target's defense. Same with magic check. I think magic checks. I don't remember if this is. Yeah. Anyway, but they do damage in an interesting way. Damage is calculated in an interesting way because it's always like the weapon. So yeah, using the weapon is a skill check. So like for a steel dagger, for example, is Dex plus Insight +1. And you roll that. If you beat the target's defense, that's great. Your damage is going to be is always determined by the high roll. So whatever of the 2 dice you rolled, you're using whichever one rolled higher, which I think is really neat. But I also acknowledge that would kind of make automation of this difficult. But rolls, open check. Okay, yeah. Open checks, situational modifiers, yeah. Lots of group checks. This is kind of important because this is also how initiative is handled. So it's like you pick one person to make the final check based on, and they're going to go for one difficulty level. Everybody else is basically doing the same, rolling the same check, but they just need to beat a 10. And for every supporting character who rolls a 10 or higher, that adds a +1 to the leader's roll. So, You can also add strength of bonds, or the single highest bond strength gets added to the roll if necessary. Yada yada yada. Here's a bunch of basic quick reference, like here's what you would roll to do that, potentially roll to do this. Moving on. I believe, yeah, obviously the game includes clocks because that has become a thing now, I think. Clocks for tracking progress of stuff. You get the idea. Bonds, again, kind of mentioned that this various emotions, connections, but how certain different characters feel toward each other. They come in pairs. You can only have up to 3. You can have a bond of up to 3 with one character. that sort of thing. Uh, Creating bonds, strengthening bonds, yada 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 yada. Conflict scenes. All right. So this is obviously the fight scene. Da da da. Fights. Anytime we're having a yeah. Okay. So this is important. This is why I had to do the group check thing, because initiative is decided by a initiative group check of Dex plus Insight. So obviously you want the person with the yeah, all of that. And but on top of that, yada yada yada. Okay. So the way initiative is rolled, initiative basically boils down to who goes first. Because it always goes like it always switches between PCs and NPCs, and it's kind of handled more as it's not necessarily set. So if like one player character is like, okay, has a okay, I want to do this thing to set up something else, then they need to go, I need to set this up now, set something up now. Okay, you don't PCs don't have to go in any particular order, which is kind of nice. So that allows for a bit more strategy and strategizing and whatnot. And okay, hey, I want to set up. I'm gonna set, hey, this person is really needs to be healed. Okay, well, I'll go now. Or hey, I need, if I do this thing, I can set up for something later. Yada yada yada. It's kind of fun. I like it. Yeah, space and distance are, again, because this is going into JRPG type stuff. It is fairly abstracted. Like, it doesn't really matter. You don't need a table. You don't actually need like a mat or a board or anything to keep an idea on that. It's just like, yeah, it works very well for theater of the mind, and I really like that. I did not try to do any kind of split scenes, because that would be, I feel like that'd be difficult. And again, sorry, I haven't been mentioning this. I do kind of love the cutesy little chibi art as well as the regular art. Okay, yeah. Actions in combat, minor stuff. You know, you can take any number of. Let me see. Here are some minor actions that are like whatever. You might be able to do any of the following: pick something up or drop something, throw something to another character. You know, interact with the environment in some way, shape, or form. But your main actions are going to be things like, okay, attacking somebody, switching out a piece of equipment. You can take the guard action, which actually, is basically, okay, I'm gonna, turtle up and for defend myself. Potentially try to make things difficult for an opponent. Pull something out of your magic pack of inventory stuff. You know, work toward filling some kind of an objective. Cast a spell. Make a study roll, which is basically, hey, try and make a successful roll to figure something out. Make any other kind of skill roll. Use some kind of a skill that you might have, or, any number of things that the GM might feel like. And here's going into more details on what all of that is. Yada, yada, yada. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And of course, the idea of getting more into group checks, finishing up conflict, turn related effect, da da da. Clocks. Examples. Okay. So obviously, yeah, hit point. points. I do appreciate that they note that right hit points aren't necessarily your health exactly. It's like it's yeah the shield keeping you from taking taking that hit that will totally knock you out. It's you know presenting it as more minor injuries and whatnot than really big powerful attacks. Uh, I think there's some. Okay, crisis is like half your hit points rounded down, and I think that might actually might come into play with certain things as necessary. Uh, Again, I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, if you hit points, you're not technically dead. You're not like automatically dead, which again is I think that's kind of cool, but I'm potentially weird like that. It's definitely one of those okay, you know, yeah, you're down and there will definitely be some kind of a consequence for this, but you're not necessarily dead unless you the player feel like that would be an appropriate result. Mind points are what you use to, activate different skills and skills like spells and such. Yeah. Okay. When NPCs hit 0 hit points, it's like, that's kind of whatever happens to them is kind of technically up to the player. So like, the player could just decide, okay, no, they're gonna run, they're gonna be knocked unconscious, or hey, nope, they're just dead. So, yeah. So we can still technically be the good guys and not just crazy murder hobos. And was that NPCs? Okay, that's NPCs. Villains. Villains are a special type of character. These are like the big important enemies. They have names and stuff. And when they hit 0 hit points, they have the option of escaping or surrendering. And so, you know, escaping, yeah, it's kind of like right. Villains have their sort of counter to the Fabula points that PCs have, and those are called Ultima points. And basically, when if a villain gets dropped to 0 hit points, the GM can basically spend an Ultima point, and the villain will make their dramatic exit because it's always more fun when the villain escapes at the last second. But of course, if we want, alternatively, we can have them surrender because they can't for some reason. PCs, yeah, PCs have two options. One of them is you can just agree to sacrifice yourself as a kind of do some last awesome thing, but apparently they do want to set some rules for that. You need to have at least two of the following. Either needs to be a villain in the scene. It would somehow benefit a character you have a bond with, or you actually believe that the sacrifice would be a benefit to everything things. It's yeah. Otherwise, you surrender. And it's like, okay, you're down, you're out of the fight, you're not dead, technically, but you're down. Upside, you immediately gain 2 Fabula points, which again, kind of nice. And you fight. When you wake up, you're back to like half your hit points total. And here are some consequences that you might have. That you're gonna have some kind of a consequence, which could be anything from like, okay, your theme has now change. You develop a bond. A bond changes. You lose some item, or hey, you're now on your own somewhere else. You've been taken away from the party. Obviously, resting good way to is recovering recover hit points, recover that stuff. You can spend 4 inventory points to just pop out a mat. Someone can spend that to make a tent. Or alternatively, stay somewhere else. There are apparently rules for like if you're resting at a settlement. Again, when you rest, regain hit points and mind points, and recover from any statuses that you happen to have. And I don't know if we went over this. I don't know. It might come up later. Statuses are basically things that reduce the die size for your skill attributes. Yes. Oh, wow. And other stuff you can mess around with bonds while resting. Yada yada yada. Damage. Being a JRPG type thing, there are a bunch of different damages. I really kind of wish the monster stat blocks didn't just use these icons, because I'm telling you, when you're just looking at the picture, it's like, okay, what is that? What does that mean? Give me words, please. Okay. There's different types of affinities. Vulnerability means obviously, you take double damage. Resistance, you take half. Immunity, you take no damage. And absorption is even worse because that heals you. That heals whatever it has, potentially. So, don't go dropping like, the electrical monster. Maybe don't go doing bolt damage to that because it's probably just going to make them happier. That kind of thing. Whereas deal extra damage, there are certain ways to change the type of damage you do, which is... There's a number of ways to do that, which is kind of cool. Rising damage, Okay, right. Status effects, right. These reduce the size of your various dice, and they come... Some of them, you'll notice, are effect two rather than 1. On the sheet, like, okay, there's like, you have the 4... you have the 4 attributes. Yeah. I think it's like Dex, Insight, Might, Willpower. And next to them are little boxes. And then next to those, 4 boxes. And next to those are 2 other boxes. So it's like, okay, cool. Nice way to keep track of it. It's really straightforward. But yeah, and if they stack, congratulations, you've bumped up to the next one. Luckily, you can only have like, obviously there's only 6 status effects. So your die can only be reduced to a d6. So, yay? Points, obviously talking about these ways to gain them. There's some fun, interesting, Fabula points. I feel like these kind of make up for our ways to make, failing, bad things happening feel less bad. Obviously, if you don't have any at the start of a session, you automatically gain 1. If you fumble a check, you get 1. If a villain enters a scene, doesn't matter if the player characters are there or not, you gain a point. I think you actually gain a point for every villain that enters the scene, which is really nice. Player gets reduced to 0 hit points and decides to surrender. That gets you 2. Alternative, you can actually invoke a bond or trait to fail a check, potentially as an optional rule to gain a Fabula point. So it's basically like, right, I'm intentionally failing this because it would make sense for my character. That's kind of cool. There's a number of things you can do. If you mentioned a couple of these, alter the story is like, that's the new mention here, but that's basically like, okay, we're gonna add a new thing, some new element to the scene, and that could potentially open some options. Again, you can invoke a bond to add that to a roll, invoke a trait to re-roll a die, or potentially use certain skills. And more details into what all of those are. Villains, we've kind of gone over this. Ultima points, obviously, the more Ultima points a villain has, the more important and interesting they are. The bigger a deal they are. Can you again villains can spend Ultima points to do similar stuff. Big one being, escape. They can invoke their own traits to get a reroll, or hey, you can spend those to just automatically recover some MP. And here's something I didn't even notice, which, because I skimmed through this, never really dug into this. Like, I think, well, as no remaining Ultima points is no longer a villain, becomes equivalent to an NPC, or, so either A, if a villain spends all their Ultima points, either they become just another NPC, or they escalate and become even worse. So, that minor little bandit captain goes on to become like the supreme chief villain of the whole campaign. That'd be amazing. I just think that's interesting. Yeah. Inventory points, again, kind of explain this. Journeys and travels, obviously doing stuff. Random encounter stuff. Tables, sort of. Hey, are we gonna have a random encounter because these are just those kinds of games. Dungeons, magic, general stuff. Not even gonna really dig into what each of the types of magic are, because okay. Here are the different classes that get to cast magic spells. You're gonna need to take levels in at least one of them if you want to do any kind of spells. Here's what the spell format looks like. You have the spell name is an offensive spell name and is an offensive spell. How many points it costs, how many target, if it has a target, gets, who it targets and how many, how long it lasts. It's fairly straightforward. Yada. Spend the required MP. Spells offensive. You have to perform a magic check. Different types of spell casting. Okay, so 3 of these use insight plus willpower. One of them is either insight plus willpower or might plus willpower. I think you're supposed to beat the enemy's magic defense if it's an offensive spell. I don't remember. Calculating damage, again, use the high roll plus whatever the flat modifiers for the scene for the spell. Some spells have cumulative effects. Rituals, I haven't even looked into this because it's uh-huh. It has not come up. I have not. If I were to run a more long term campaign of the game of this, I would definitely look into read through the ritual stuff. But it's not something I've done because it didn't come up. Economy. Do we really need this stuff again? Buying stuff, purchasing items, selling items. Here's different things you can buy. Buy and general prices for stuff. I find it interesting that, well, I guess it's not that surprising that paying for a full rest in a city is going to cost twice as much as in like a tiny little town, which in turn is twice as much as resting in a village. I kind of like that they leave the mounts and vehicles as kind of vague, and because it's that kind of game where hey, if you want to beat whatever it is, it could be all kinds of weird stuff. It's who cares. Different types of equipment. Again, much like with the certain classes get magic, certain classes are proficient with. There's definitely types of weapons and armor and other melee there's martial melee and martial ranged weapons, martial armor, and martial shields, and only these 5 classes can use any of those. So again, if you want to use the heavier armor and use the bigger weapons, you're gonna have to take at least a level in one of these classes, which again, not that big a deal. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. Accessories, armors. Here's what armor it is. Here's what it does for your defenses. They all impact initiative, and I think they all drop your initiative by at least a little bit. Modify your initiative a little bit. Anyway. Shields, yada yada yada. Weapons, again. All weapons have kind of a set accuracy roll determined by the accuracy roll is determined by the weapon, not necessarily by anything else. What you roll to attack is determined by what weapon you roll. So make sure to look into take that into account when picking your weapons. And here's a quick list of some basic weapons. A side thing, I do love the pixel art. I do like that. I do very much appreciate it. I admit I find it kind of annoying that all the swords are martial weapons, but again, most of the weapons actually are, except for very basic ones. So, yeah. And again, same with armor, the good armor, the potentially good armor that actually gives you the good armor is all martial, so you need to take certain classes. Projects, not something I even looked into. But I believe projects are making stuff. There's a couple things, a couple different things you can make. Group dynamics, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. More lovely group artwork. Again, I want to know what the characters' names are. I want to know more about these characters and their stuff. I want to know. I wish to know more. Please tell me more. And finally, better part of halfway through this book, we finally get to the actual stuff for making a character. My God. All right. Again, like a lot of games, we have the session 0 stuff. stuff, laying all that out. Okay. Okay, here's things you should maybe talk about before you start playing, yada, yada, yada. Uh, you know, here's some safety stuff, like, maybe here's some things you should talk about, definitely things you should talk about before getting started. As mentioned, yeah. So, right, yeah, creating the world isn't just something the GM does. The players, the GM and the players work together to create a world to adventure in. There's a number of general points vague points they want to keep. Feel like need to be maintained need to be kind of universal, but other than that, it's whatever fits with the story. They're kind of vague anyway, so. And they include some handy tables to, if you don't have ideas, it's like, sure, just roll on this and maybe that'll help spark something, or it'll help fill in some blanks. Like, hey, how did magic and technology, how's that fit into your world? What's some stuff from how big are, what's some locations, what kind of polities are we talking about here? Obviously, nice big list of names. Noticing a lot of these seem kind of like definitely European in vibe, at least a number of them, sort of, kind of. But again, the company that makes the game, publishes this, is in Italy, so I guess it makes a certain amount of sense. Here's a list of random events and mysteries and whatnot that could maybe kick things off. Cool. Group creation, character creation. Okay. Or maybe kind of getting to the actual point. Fun stuff. All right. So identity. Who is your character? What is your character? Please explain. That kind of becomes, could potentially be your guiding principle, whatever. Again, it's maybe a short sentence to explain your character, and if you really don't know, there's some handy tables. So, like, okay, pick one or two of these from this table. Pick one or two of these from these 3 lists. Pick one or two adjectives from these 2 lists, and then finally pick a detail from this list. Theme, they've got, obviously, here's a bunch of themes they've got. They're all fairly straightforward. And origin is, where are you from? Maybe you're from a place that you've already got on the map. Maybe you want to add a new place to the map. That's fine. It's a way to flesh out the world. And then finally, classes. Okay. So I mentioned this a while ago that I feel this game does you can play any type of character you want really, really well. Like, I feel it's almost like perfect, because classes in this game are really just, it's literally like a list of abilities. And every time you take a level in a class, you just pick one of these abilities from the class. And that's it. There's no trees. There's no, okay, you need to be this level to take this and this level to take this. Like, no. Like, like, yes, there's 15 classes, but they're all, but it that comes out to like 125 abilities, not counting spells. But yeah, each class has is 5 skills. That's basically all they are. It's a lit, and you can mix and match these however you want. And you also get certain free benefits from taking at least one level in that class, which is really, really nice. And again, yeah, determine base size of your attributes. They don't let you start with anything higher than a D. Generally, don't let you start with anything higher than a D10 in an attribute. But again, yeah, probably a good idea to at least be okay at some things at more than what have been. Not to have like really, not to specialize too much, because again, you are rolling 2 dice for just about everything. Hit points and mind points based on the highest value of your might and willpower die, respectively, times 5 plus your character level. So yeah, you only ever gain like 1 MP and 1 hit point per level unless you take some stuff that, unless like some class specifics come into get involved. Yeah, but we'll get to that. Potentially get to that in a bit. Da, 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 da. Starting equipment, and yada yada yada. More again with the weapons, just in case you need to do that with buying stuff when you're making your character. Yada 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 yada. Lovely art. Here's a list of random names. Okay, and I kind of like this because, admittedly, even with the fairly straightforward understanding of classes, it's still a lot to think about. So they do just kind of go, okay, here's like some really fairly straightforward, fairly interesting classes that you might want to try, that you might, archetypal type classes. Here's how you would build that character. So like, yeah, we have, hey, okay, you want to be basically a healer. Okay, here's where you want to spend your starting 5 levels. Take 2 levels of orator and take the skills encourage and my trust in you. And then take 3 levels of spiritist and take, for each level take spiritual magic and then take these 3 spells. Here's the equipment we recommend you have. Here's amount of money you will have left, and here's the ability score array that we recommend. You want to be punchy melee person. Here's the same thing. You take 3 levels of fury with frenzy and 2 levels of withstand. Put the other 2 levels in weapon master and take bone crusher and counterattack. Take 2 sets of this armor. Here's ranger, red mage. Take, it's, if you want to be really don't want to put too much thought into this and don't want to spend too much time flipping through these, because I think the actual classes take up a good chunk of space, and it doesn't help that the first one is a spellcaster that also does like a lot of summonings and whatnot, so that takes up extra space. And again, but like, okay, like the Dark Blade class. Okay, what's the Dark Blade class? Okay, Dark Blade automatically gets you 5 extra hit points, and you can use martial melee weapons and martial armor. Here, the 5 ability skills for the Dark Blade are Agony, which you can take up to 5 times. Dark, all these here, here's the 5 skills associated with this class and what they do. This is, admittedly, this is a class that really shine. A lot of, at least a number of these are based on being under 50% of your hit points. Elementalist, that's probably the most, arguably the most straightforward potentially the most straightforward caster. It's here, a lot of your stuff does damage. If your stuff does damage, or it's somehow buffing stuff to allow you to do very few, it's very little in the way of buffs. I'm not even going to look through all this stuff, but yeah, you get the idea. Guardian, yeah, it's your big, chunky, heavy armor, big armor, big shields, big hit points. Mostly, this is the one class that can actually use 2 shields at once. Which is like, sure, okay. Why not? And yeah, here's an ability that gets you even more hit points. And you can take it up to 5 times. Good grief. Orator, which is kinda, the talky, inspirational character. Sharpshooter for those people who like to be not potentially be able to attack stuff at ranged and whatnot. Spiritist is basic. Largely, it's your kind of the white mage. This is the class that has healing magic. This is the healing and light magic, I think. Yeah. Healing and buffing and generally not. I guess a couple of. Okay, I guess there are 3 healing and buffing and that sort of thing, and light damage. Fun times. Obviously, it wouldn't be a JRPG type game if there wasn't at least one class that's like, here, I do techno stuff. I make so much stuff. And right, yeah, and weapon master. It's here's your. I'm the character who does weapons. And yeah, there's more stuff about putting how you're coming up with stuff, getting your character together. All right, and gaining levels. Last little thing, probably I'm gonna say gaining high level. Jeez, probably not gonna get into that. Here's some other stuff, but okay. Gaining levels, you gain a level every time you gain 10 XP, I believe. And again, you're starting at level 5, going up to potentially level 50. Let's see. Every session you gain at least 5 XP. You gain another XP for every Ultima point the villain spent, so that's an encouragement to do things to the villains and go after them. And also, you gain an XP equal to the number of Fabula points you spend divided by the number of players. So that's your incentive to actually spend those and use them rather than trying to hoard them. Some optional rules that might add could do some things, but if you do that, potentially maybe don't do the automatic 5 XP every session. But even if none of the bare minimum, you're going to gain a level every other session, so leveling up should be fairly quick. But again, leveling up basically means congratulations, you get to pick another skill. You get one more hit point, one more mind point, I believe. And when you reach level 20 and 40, which admittedly could take a while, you can bump up an attribute die by one size. So that's nice. That's kind of nice. There are rewards for spending as much, trying to focus on a single class and get at least 10 levels in a class. You can only have that grants you a heroic skill, which that's on the next. We'll get to that in a minute. You can you can only, if you have 3 classes and if you already have 3 classes but you haven't got at least 10 levels in one of those, you can't really take any new classes. So I guess this is their way of saying, hey, don't try and spread yourself too thin and try and cover too much. So try and focus up on at least 3. Try and focus up on your classes. Don't try to take one of everything. If you increase an attribute size, that potentially changes some stuff. Potentially change your identity or theme. Oop. Hey, yeah. Hey, Xavier. Poor timing, because I'm really just about to finish up here. Yeah, okay. Okay. Is this optional advancement rules? Okay, we're not even going to do that. Right. So, right. You get 10 levels in a class. Yeah. Well, thanks for dropping anyway. Yeah. But yeah, if you take at least invest 10 levels in one class, you get to pick a heroic skill, which is some of it's pretty basic. Some of it requires actually mastering a certain class, which might make things more fun and interesting. And gives you a reason to spend more time focusing on a single class rather than spend more time focusing on at least 1 or 2 classes rather than trying to spread yourself really thin. And yeah, there's the explanation of all that stuff. Okay, and I think that gets us into the game master stuff, which I'm not going to get into. But once again, another lovely piece of art from this game. This is Fabula Ultima. Definitely, So yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's Fabula Ultima. It's the rules are fairly simple and straightforward, and I really like that. And I don't know, it's one of many games that if I had the time and energy, it's one of the many games I would definitely be trying to run. Okay. But so yeah, again, if you're the kind of person who enjoys playing JRPGs and maybe would like to try a game that's fairly rules light, it's not, or at least not rules that are not overly complicated. Yeah, check it out. pick it up. Let me see. Hold on a second, and I will. Hold on a second, and I'll. Oh no. Actually, you know what? Yeah, if you really want to pick up stuff, anything about this game, yeah, go to the website right there, fabulaultima.com. I'm pretty sure that should take you there. That should take you there. It'll redirect you. It's a very nice site. You can find links to the quick start. Find links to the, continue play, free stuff. Find links to all their free stuff. And, that'll in turn link you to where you can actually purchase the game itself, should you feel so inclined. Again, I've run it. It's fairly simple. It's very fun. Very fun. I have no idea what I'm gonna be. Actually, I do think I know what I want to be doing next week. It's, as I mentioned before, I kind of want to do this for. I got maybe 3 more that I want to do. I want to do this for maybe another 3 weeks before maybe switching to streaming video games, streaming some game Thursday nights. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing at least one of those nights, but I don't know. We'll see what I've got. We'll see. I'll take a look at what I have and what I've been. Yeah. But yeah. I'll definitely have something for next week. Another game to look at next week. So yeah, thanks for showing up, and I guess I'll see you then. Bye.